What's up, everyone? Welcome. We are live right now on Cannabis, and if you're joining us on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. We have a great episode for you today. We have Scotty Real from the Dude Grows Show and Real Growers. We have many folks in the community and in our cannabis community that are also in the Dude Grows Show community or the Dude Grows crew. So we're super excited to have another cool crossover episode today with Scotty on the show. We're going to be talking about recharge, his how he got into microbes. I'm sure hear what else is going on over at Real Growers, and then also what's going on at Dude Grows. And then today I'll just acknowledge that it's an afternoon episode, so I'm doing dad duty. So if we have a surprise special guest pop his head up or make a sound, that's what's going down. But before we get too, yeah, surprise special guest.
That's why Scott brought me. It's bring your baby to work day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
another shiny dome.
That's who I was talking about.
Hey, that gentleman right there is Mr. Josh Grambo himself, man, superstar producer. Yeah, thank you, Grambo, for hanging out with us today, man.
Of course, I'm glad to be here. Scott needed me to turn on the camera.
Yeah. Well, before we get too far into the show, we're going to make a couple shout outs. First off, shout out to the folks in our cannabis community. We do, when we do these interviews, we live stream them to our community. It's our supporter, members only community. We've got a few folks in there that are in the chat right now. So we do these live streams into the episode. I can't talk today. I'm sorry, guys. We do these live streams into our app, and it's a place where you can post whatever you want. So you can post your grow updates, all sorts of things, and it's just a great way to support us. You can join us in the app, search Cannabis in the App Store, and use the code BUZZ for your first month free. I'm also going to give a shout out to lostcoastplanttherapy.com. Lost Coast Plant Therapy supported the show. They've been really helpful to us over the past year or 2 years that we've known them. So huge shout out to Dirk. If you need to grab yourself a spray that you're going to use in your garden to knock down things like powdery mildew, bud rot, insects that are trying to take a bite out of your plants, check out Lost Coast Plant Therapy. It's super helpful. What I do, people have asked me in other videos how I use it. I spray it. If you're really trying to knock down bugs, spray it like every couple days, every 3 days for about, 9-10 days in a row at least. And it can be really, really helpful. So check them out. And then last shout out before I throw it over to JR and we'll get the episode started. Shout out to SacredThreeMushrooms.com. Tanazi is a friend of everyone here. And Tanazi is a huge supporter of the show. If you go to his website and use the code CANNABUZZ, you get 10% off. And you can grab yourself a grow kit at SacredThreeMushrooms.com. And they also have links to spores and anything you can need. So check it out. If you want to learn how to grow your own fungi at home, he's got everything you can need, videos, resources, all sorts of stuff. Check it out and use that code CANNABUZZ. And then I'll throw it. I think you're trying to tag in
because it showed me my Google picture frame is always spying on me. Showed me a picture of Tanazi. Grambo, you'll vouch for it, right?
Crazy old. He has like hair.
As soon as you said that Sacred Three Mushrooms, my Google picture frame showed me a picture of Tanazi.
Crazy,
scary. Sorry, guys, but that is a solid guy. Hey, both you said Dirk from Lost Coast Plant Therapy, Tanazi. These are both Sacred Three Mushrooms. There's always people, just like me with Recharge and Grow Dust. There's people behind these companies. It's their passion. They dedicate the best hours and energy of their lives to make these products. They believe in them. There's no way either of those folks would put so much time into it if they didn't believe it. And so these are great folks. Please support them.
Thanks, Scotty. Thanks. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing about the DGC and Cannabis and Dude Grows is we're not going to rep products that we don't stand behind, that we don't feel like are going to be successful for our community members.
So true, man. It is so true.
And so I'll go ahead and pick up our Tiki announcements. Tiki has restocked his Mr. Stanky. And that's the permanent marker by his Tiki Lemon Cherry Sherbet, and it's 50% off the entire site, and you get a free spooky pack of seeds with every order this month. And then Neptune's at NeptuneSeedbank is featuring the Strawberry Zombie by Love in Her Eyes, which is her zombie by Strawberry Cadillac, and another friend of both of our shows and a huge supporter of the community, Love in Her Eyes. So go ahead and check out those packs at NeptuneSeedbank.com.
All right, man. All right. Grandpa, I offended Love in Her Eyes, didn't I? I think I said hippy dippy one time.
Yeah.
And she never came back since. Man.
Well, it's
Jeez.
good to know what not to do, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I think you learned from me. She's such a sweetheart. I don't think that's really it. She's actually really
well, she's turbo busy.
yeah, that was a joke.
I remember
by the
saying
way.
something. She hated my eyebrows. I don't remember.
Yeah, like, oh, I don't trust your eyebrows. We're not letting anybody in on that. All right, everything. No, I'm just good. She's like a real private person. I guess breeders, she's someone that doesn't need to promote so much, man. She can let her work speak for itself. Every time I say Guava Gator, I'm promoting for her.
Yeah, and I've been barking up that interview tree for probably 6 years now.
Yes.
Never happened. She just
show
does
up.
not.
She knows
does
she
not
doesn't
do
need
interviews.
you. She doesn't need you, man.
I mean, she lives locally, man. She lives locally. I'll show up and leave notes on her door and stuff like
The
that.
the fire sells itself,
I
JR.
didn't know she was from here. That's crazy.
I don't go leave notes on the door. I was just kidding, everybody.
Well, let's kick off the show before we go off too far into a tangent. Welcome to the show, Scotty. As I said at the top, you're the owner of Real Growers. You're one of the founders of the Do Grow Show. You're the chaotic force behind it, the chaotic good. And
I never thought of myself as that, but that is very right. Yeah, that is right on, right? He's the organized force. I'm the chaotic force. I like that.
There you go. And so we'll to get things started, for folks that aren't familiar with Scotty, or if you really dig this episode and you want to have fun watching other episodes of Scotty, we have a couple others. We have one that's called like How to Use Recharge, and people still watch that today. So if you want to, and if you enjoy this one and want to dive further into Recharge, check that one out. But before, again, we get too off into a tangent. Let's talk about microbes. So tell us how you discovered microbe interactions and how that kind of led you into the path of Recharge and creating Recharge.
And I'm trying to make the short version, but I was a deep water culture grower. I was never a grower of anything. And then when I found out I could make money and grow weed, granted, I loved weed first. And then when I realized it came with seeds and I wanted to grow it. But of course, it was actually the early 90s. So I went to the store and bought a rock wool slab system and GH3 part. And was you're supposed to keep everything really clean, everything sterile. And that was cool. I had some success with that. Went to a deep water culture system. And man, again, you had to keep everything sterile. And there was absolutely no media. So if you didn't do everything right, you really got you have what do they call Pythium, Phytophthora, those nasty Fusarium, all those. Oh, those are fun words to say. All right, guys, I got too high before the interview. I just realized that now. But those type of things would just wreak havoc on us. And we would use products like HydroGuard and I didn't really fully understand what I was doing back then. I thought I would actually use hydrogen peroxide and once a week just literally bleach the roots, man. Anyway, but when I moved to Colorado, I was the owner of Way to Grow is a friend of mine. Super cool guy. And I was like, hey, I kind of had what do they call it, imposter syndrome. I was like, man, I'm up with the big leagues with these Colorado guys. How do I compete? And he's like, just can of A and B and can of cocoa, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I'm not keeping stuff sterile anymore. Cocoa's not sterile. Nothing is sterile. You can wash your hands and 5 minutes later, it's not sterile. The idea, and I also started using earthworm castings. That cocoa looked just too, I don't know, I had to modify it, man, earth it up a little bit. So I started using earthworm castings, and I noticed, man, that I had to stop paying attention to a lot of things. My plants became much less reactive, and that was just adding an organic component to it. And then when I started looking into earthworm castings, the good castings were loaded with microbial life. And it just got me down that rabbit hole.
So you have this idea, like how'd you I forget the whole story about like the formulator and the kind of the guy who or the partner that you work with ate recharge and the formula. But I guess you you had the light bulbs went off in your head, but did you know who to call to like when you had that idea, or
No,
how did that kind of come together?
man. There are so many things in my life. I think to like the random time when I met my wife, and I'm like, wow, I just went to the pier one night, and was listening to a band, and I just, that's where I met her. And then I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I went to that pier a lot. I definitely was putting in the work, and then I finally met somebody nice. It's the same thing. I was really exploring all around. Trying to learn about microbes. And yeah, I was able to find some talent out there. Yeah.
One of the things that we've kind of run across, and we don't have to go too deep into it, is that like the amount of people that produce mycorrhizae around in the world even is pretty limited.
I It's tight, man. I will say you got to find yourself a good supplier and make them happy. So
To
you
make them
so,
always happy.
so they don't want to do business with anybody else. Man.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
good.
I don't wanna-
And so now, one of the kind of the mantras of the Do Grow Show and Real Growers is encouraging people to grow their own medicine and be responsible for producing their own herb. Can you kind of talk, how you like to like get people encouraged and get people down that path?
Sure. I do the Dude Grow show. But seriously, I mean, if I'm at a party or something like that, and I'd love, we're all the reason I wanted to do this show, and Grambo, you're included in this, is we're all friends. This would be something we would all either hang out together and BS like this, or hang out at a a party or whatever. So this is an absolute joy to do. And I completely forgot the question.
We always have to stop mid-show. Like we'll be talking before the show starts. Go, stop. We're doing the show. Our conversation. This is how we talk on the show. That's how we talk off.
But if I'm at a party or something like that, I might say to somebody, I'm like, dude, you need to get yourself a 2x4. It's freaking easy, and it is pretty easy. I'll say the buckets, I give myself a shameless plug for the real buckets, but the hardest thing is showing up every couple days to water them. I mean, people are pretty reliable, but cue your eyebrows. We have the eyebrow
Yeah,
filter.
we're gonna break.
We might not know how to turn it off.
Finally broke it. We put on the Zoom eyebrows.
We know how to turn it off. It's just Zoom wouldn't let me.
But
The
seriously,
sad-
I mean, what's it
The
cost?
sad
Yes, sir.
I was gonna say the sad thing is I'm so old and my eyes are thinning that it actually looks
Yeah, mine
real.
look
Like
good.
I know,
Good.
I
You trust me more?
know.
Buy my microbes. Try my microbes. No, but seriously,
yeah, no,
what's it
you-
cost for a 2x4 now, man? $600 for a complete 2x4 system. Man, you can do all right with that. You get yourself two of them and just get to hop on cannabis for a couple hours, man. You can get growing, right? Man, you can have success.
Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about the way you guys you set people up through success by walking them through a lot of these concepts and the basics of growing that keep it simple. And I think that's kind of one of the cool things about recharge is it helps you keep it simple. Grow dots really help you keep it simple, and the same with the real buckets as well. It's a way for people to break. It's like an easier barrier of entry for a lot of folks.
Yeah, you see the trend, man. I'm pretty lazy. Now, you know what it is? I got a
it
bunch of
speaks to your
other stuff
character.
going on.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. All right, you're not recording this, are you? We're not. No, seriously, man. I stopped going in my greenhouse. I planted my greenhouse. I just don't have any passion for it. There's no weed in there. There's some hot peppers and tomatoes, and I know I'm a whatever, man. I use it as a test garden. And what I did is I put a whole bunch of real buckets in there. I put a whole bunch of grow dots in there. I tested a bunch of different cocos and grow dots at a bunch of different rates. And then I always freak out because I love going in my indoor grow, but you can't you can't go in your outdoor greenhouse and then go in your indoor grow. So I'm committed. Anytime I go in my outdoor greenhouse, I am committed to going inside, taking off all my clothes, taking a shower, and then being able to go in my regular, indoor grow. So anyway, long story short, I went in there after about 3 weeks, maybe a month, and everything was freaking growing. It was growing awesome. It needed nothing from me. I went and picked a whole bunch of peppers and tomatoes, man. So that's my MO, is trying to make stuff really easy because it sucks. If you go spend some money and you get all excited and you plant stuff and you spend money on seeds and you spend money on soil and a tent and you go away for the weekend and you forget to water your plants for 3 days and they die. Come on, that sucks,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question for you when I was thinking about interviewing you today. I was thinking about how you have this indoor grow and you have this kind of philosophy, like you were saying, you want to kind of like set things up and let them keep running. I was curious what you do to keep bugs out of your indoor grow. You just talked about how you don't go from your outdoor grow to your indoor grow. Do you
Mm.
do like a Lost Coast plant therapy spray like every month or something like that? I'm just kind of curious what you do, because I've found that like during the winter months, especially, like the bugs will come inside and things kind of pop up. And I was just kind of curious if you had any sort of pro
Yeah.
tips off the top of your head, since we're getting into the colder months soon.
Honestly, I don't accept be disciplined cultural practices. I don't when you're bringing stuff in. I am guilty of it, man. I've done it, but I've also not done it where I'm like, hey, man, I can't take this plant. I'm not bringing this plant into my grow. It's only a couple trusted people. JR, I would. If you sent me a plant, you do allegedly, man. What's your brother's name, man?
His
Sends me
name's
plants
JR
every now and
Smoking.
again.
His name's JR Smoking.
Yeah, Jared Token is a fictional character. But yeah, but just cultural practices, really not cross contamination is a big deal. I don't bring a bunch of people into my grow. Just really careful of that stuff, and thankfully, I haven't had a problem. But I tell you what, ready? Environment, man. Environment. Having a dialed in environment with the right VPD, not keeping things too hot or humid is huge for IPM.
Yeah. So as we're kind of talking about new growers and kind of setting up their grows, what do you tell like new growers to kind of focus their money on if they're on a budget and they need to get, just the basics to get things done? What are the things you're kind of telling new growers to spend their money on?
Freeze dryer, water filter, and the Grandmaster 24 bottle system. Right? I'm just funning, man. Grambo, you can pop in here too, because you're a small scale grower, right? Of course, I'm gonna say a tent, and then a tent, and then 2 tents after that.
Yeah, I was intimidated by going down to a tent. I was a room grower my whole life. I had, like at least a 12 by 8 my whole existence. And it wasn't like starting over. Like no matter what path you go down, dialing in your environment, like that is the most important thing. And so yeah, figure out what your end goal is and go from there.
But I would try to, perpetual. I would tell somebody, if you spend $1,500 and buy 2 $700 tents, with it, decent. I like AC Infinity. You go buy an AC Infinity kit with the vent, the ventilation fan and everything like that.
With coupon code DUDE10.
But seriously, you've got perpetual harvest. If you can teach somebody how to do perpetual harvest, whether you're planting auto flower seeds every 30 days or just you got one veg tent where you're taking clones and keeping mums. It's a fun ass hobby for $1,500 getting, I don't know, a plant every month. You could probably figure out, right?
I know, like for me back in the day, I would always plan when's going to be Father's Day, when's going to be my birthday, and when's going to be Christmas, because that's when I'd get all my grow equipment or grow, just to kind of start, building up the shiz.
All right, so I'm gonna say a tent. Go get a nice tent set up, good quality.
Yeah, and then genetics. Obviously,
What is happening?
What
is happening?
Q has a child. That's just
Oh,
okay.
did you hear something in the background? My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry about that. I was gonna say
donkey.
we'd add, obviously, and you guys talk about this on your show a lot. Genetics is in the mix there too, and that's why we always shout out on both of our shows, the proper breeders that you can get good stuff from, so that you're not wasting time on shitty plants.
It's got to be number 2. And now, out of all of us, who can go to a store and buy clones? And would you recommend that? Y'all are growers. I respect the hell out of y'all's grow.
It's hard, especially the time of the year. Like this time of year, like actually someone posted this on Reddit the other day in the Bay Area subreddit for weed smokers, Bay Area Ents, I think is called. And they said, where can you get clones? And I don't think you can get clones this time of year. Clones are kind of a seasonal thing. At a lot of places, right? Because like the clone nurseries, they crank out tons of clones in the earlier part of the year, or maybe they do it at events or something like that. But it can be harder to get them at other times of year.
There are more and more clone banks that are popping up that are online. I know even breeders now, like I think Irie, Raw Genetics has their secretselections.io. Tiki's had cuts available at one time. And so, I mean, it's like a lot of those guys are really particular about tissue culture and stuff like that too. So you can get a really good clean product, because I think Scotty's kind of alluding to the point that if you just go down to your local dispo and try to grab something from there, you may be grabbing a lot more than just a plant.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And what I was trying to say is that the availability isn't really there too. It's like, it's just, if you decided to grow, all of a sudden you want to grow this winter, it can be really hard if you're trying to source stuff locally or whatever. You don't know where to get it.
And for clone shippers, the dead of winter and the super heat of summer is kind of a bitch to ship,
I bet. Yeah, I bet it is, man. Yeah, good point. Good point. Hey, did they got clones at the dispos in Denver?
Yeah, I always like go in, and it's like one of the things while I'm waiting to get edibles, I'll always go through and I'll stick my head in the little things, and classic things that you just always think. Like I'll pop my head in, and you'll always notice, once the hyphae invaginates the cell, you can wash the PM off, but there's still like a PM 5 o'clock shadow. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. And so like I'll pop my head in. I was like, oh, I see it. Get out of here.
Or you'll see them in a little 3-inch pot, and they're like 1.5 feet tall.
Yeah,
it's
right.
like you're just doomed from the get. It's like
when we were in LA, Scott and I and Dude, we were perusing the clones, and they had everything. Dude. They're straight up just PM. It looked like it had snowed in their little terrarium thing. So don't trusted growers, man. Find a grower's friend, and
that is true.
Like JR, even how good JR is, his brother Trip sent me a clone, and I open it up. It's a clean clone, and there's a little bottle of West Coast Plant Therapy in there, and I was like, JR, you're a doctor.
JR's brother,
and then
JR.
Oh, RJ. His brother RJ.
And then shout out to Farmer Freeman. I mean, if you really want to do quarantine and you want to send a sample off for HLVD, or he's got a 5 panel of viruses that he can, test for to help you know that what you're bringing in is not going to take down your entire grow.
Right. Ooh, there you go.
We had nice guy Kenny.
Hang on, so pop in, nice guy Kenny.
That way Kenny can listen in on the show.
Yes, your mic might be on. I have no idea.
Nice.
Oh, Ricky Bobby has joined us as well.
The whole family's here.
Everybody.
Scotty, I had a question for you that I was thinking about. When you're picking, since you do like perpetual grows now, do you kind of strategy do you have for the strains that you grow? Are you thinking like, oh, I want sativa and an indica, or is it more just like whatever fire strains I got from my friends? Or how do you strategize?
Yeah. I mean, Kenny knows. I'm fucking so sorry. Over fruit strains, man. I mean, just lemon. Are you guys not tired of that, man?
I never was into it to begin with.
I mean, it's like 2018 here. You know what I'm saying? Lemon strains.
They're Scott's baby.
Yeah.
What's
cute.
No, I'm just actually trying to fit in. I love all sorts of cannabis. I really actually, it's a joy because I don't have to make any kind of weight, or I don't have to make any kind of it's not like I'm making my rent on it, like it used to be. There was so much pressure to have heavy yielders or something that was super frosty. I can play around with stuff like was that grapefruit Skittles, JR?
Grapefruit slushies, yeah.
Slushies. So that's Banner has that. He loves it. I played around with it. It didn't really work that good in my system, but you know what? It didn't hurt me whatsoever. It was cool as hell to play with it, man.
It's looking beautiful in mine, man. And JR, not for nothing, your Paloma is blowing the fuck up, man. Looks awesome. Those are the two biggest plants in my tent right now, are the grapefruit Fluffy and the cherry Paloma.
I made nice guy Kenny, actually. I don't have to worry about my cuts being contaminated, because that's kind of my strategy. Is he's got a couple, I hooked him up with a couple of them big AC Infinity, the 4x8 tents, and he can do whatever he wants in the one, but the one is just, he is my keeper.
Library.
The cuts, yes. And Kenny holds the library. Yeah. So that by the way, that is, I guess it's not too big, because it's not that hard to have a veg tent, right? And then to just have a shelf on it and have a cloning chamber up top and just clone from your veg plants.
Have you ever done the staggering flower times where you're harvesting like a certain amount every 2 weeks or 3? Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Kenny, Grambo, is he on mic or not really? It doesn't come through.
They'd have to let me know. How they?
It came through. Yeah. We can hear it. It's a little echoey, but we can hear it.
Anyway, man, I get him to hang out every 2 weeks. We will check out a UFC, and it's every 3 weeks is when we harvest, because I have 3 lines of 3 plants, allegedly. When is the plant count? I don't know. Anyway, 3 lines of 3 plants in my flower. I have 3 plant veg. And then I just keep planting, in solo cups. I have solo cups that'll stay for 2 or 3 weeks. And then so by the time they go into my 3 plant veg, they're there for 3 weeks. Everything is on 3s. It's a Chinese lucky number. Grambo made me do that.
Good job, Grambo.
No, but seriously, so it's couple 2, 3, say it's 2 weeks in the cloning chamber. You can hold those however long you want. You can put them in the veg cups. So say it's another 2 to 3 weeks in those veg cups, goes down to 3 weeks in flower, and not 2-3 weeks total, I should say, in the cups, goes in the flower for 3 weeks, and then goes in line. But I messed it up. Goes in the veg for 3 weeks, then goes in the flower. So you got these stages: solo cup 3 weeks, veg 3 weeks, flower, and then I've got 3 rows of them. So every 3 weeks, 3, 6, 9. If you have it on a 9-week cycle, every 3 weeks, you're pulling 3 plants and replacing them. So you got a perpetual harvest every 3 weeks. I wish it wasn't so baked. I would have done better.
So when you set the room for the first time, you're just putting 3 plants in there, and then you got to wait 3 weeks to put more in there. Is that hard? Don't you just want to fill the room? I'd want to just fucking fill the room.
Yeah, if you had discipline, you would do that, Jay. That's why I made it along really good. Okay. Yeah, it did take a long time for me to figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought about it, but I can't convince my wife to trim every 3 weeks.
That's what's cool, is I can convince Kenny to trim, because no, seriously, when you trim 3 plants, it's fun.
Yeah,
not
true.
huge,
It's
giant
just
pound monsters, man. They're not washing.
Right.
$4,000 a pound is very fun to cut up. It's a 1.5 plants each, ain't too bad.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's a fun time. That's a
Does
good
have
time.
point there. He does
That's a Friday night.
Let's just remember that, man. Back in
Yeah.
the day when it was 4Gs a pound and it was harvest time and you had 20 lights. I don't care how tired you were. That was good.
Yeah, you just powered.
Well,
Yeah,
let's jump into that, because that was a topic that we did want to talk about at some point in the show, which was kind of like a market report, so to speak. I know you guys do the weed market reports on your show, but we like shooting the shit about that as well.
Yeah.
I've read and seen people talking online. It sounds like things aren't so popping in Colorado these days. It's kind of become a harder market like other states, but I'm curious what your take is.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely tightened up. But hey, Grimbo, I would love for you to pop in on this too, because you go to dispensaries more than me.
Yeah.
But as much as I hate to do this, I have to tell you guys that I've seen good flower at dispensaries.
I know it's controversial, but it does exist.
Yeah, they really do. What is it? You've seen it too, Grambo?
Yeah. There's a place by my place that it's called Seed and Smith. It's right by the airport. I always recommend it to anyone that pops in town. And it says right on their marquee of their building, we are small batch. They have one dispensary, one facility. The guys that have been growing there are friends with the owners for 20 years. The SOPs are bro science mixed with real, it's cured well. But it's a little expensive.
How much is it? Any idea?
Whereas like you can get an ounce for $50 somewhere, right?
What? Hang on a
No,
second.
not at Seed
Stop.
Fit. So comparing to Denver, so then at Seed and Fit's like it's 120 to 150 an ounce. So it's almost double
out the door or before taxes.
Out the door, about 160, I'd say.
That's respectable. That keeps us all in business, right?
And
you know what I mean? At
so
the end of the day, it keeps us all in
when they
business.
run out, it's drop culture. Me and Banner always talk about drop culture. You'll get a notification. I love a strain called Garlic Road. That's one of their GMO strains. And it's gone. It'll be 6 months before it's back.
This is like beer in Colorado and Fort Collins. We've got beer snoots that are like, oh my God, Odell's is doing the small batch IPA. All right.
Yeah, for real. No difference.
Yeah. So Michigan Matt up there with his company, they do a lot of dropping. They'll do small batch drops, and people are already waiting at the dispos that their shit shows up at.
He's got a Michigan event coming up, so any of you Michigan guys, make sure you go follow him.
Yeah, we did an episode with him. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
I might try to go with Gabe from Jug Dealers is going, so I might try to sneak a ride with him.
Oh hell yeah, you got to do that, Grambo.
What do you guys think about the whole cannabis is going so mainstream? It is going so just according to the principles of big business. When I think of big businesses, I think like big pharma and giant factories and corporations, and it scares me, man. It is really maturing.
Well, I think that the grassroots movements of cannabis and the medicinal aspects of cannabis and the ease of growing cannabis and the more and more states coming online with plant counts, like who's fucking counting anyways? But, when you get a plant count, that kind of disempowers, to me, a lot of that big pressure that's going to be coming from however the feds decide to flip. Like our grassroots and our own growing rights and our states' rights, especially states' rights, I think those are the only things that are going to save us from the onslaught of that. And I think the beer people, we were just talking about beer people, and I think they took that movement back. They said, I'm not going to go to the grocery store and buy shitty beer. I'm going to make some really good beer, and then I'm going to sell it to my friends, and then I'm going to open up a small shop, and then I'm going to sell out everything I ever thought was great to some giant corporation. But, that's just the way it goes, And so I hope, we can maintain that small kind of movement where we're producing small batch stuff, that drop culture hopefully remains.
We got the end part where they moved to Costa Rica.
Sorry for the baby crying on the audio, guys. Sorry about that.
That was actually me. Sorry.
I unmuted and then he started squirming. I was gonna say because you were asking what do we think's gonna. Well, we're in interesting times, right? Because we have at this point we have both presidential candidates that are up for election this November. Both of them have said something that is effectively like pro cannabis or pro.
You said politics. I'm drinking the court.
Yeah, so we live in interesting times. Yeah, we don't know how it's gonna shake out. There's all sorts of interesting details. Like for example, today, in California, the governor, it was like one of the last days to sign a bunch of bills, and they didn't sign a bill that was a cannabis bill because he was afraid that it would hurt the current cannabis businesses and it would overload the legislature. Like they wouldn't be able to, something that JR's talked about, they wouldn't have the resources basically to oversee the kind of law that they were going to pass. So I don't know. It seems like it's tough. Like even when a bunch of people line up and say we want to make this positive change, you still might not make it because they're afraid of the ramifications. And then obviously they make plenty of other decisions where they don't really seem to care about the ramifications, and often those ramifications are negative. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
My question is, did you guys get your cafes and your guys able to go like get in the eateries and smoke down?
Yeah. So what they did pass, the one that they didn't pass was where they were going to effectively allow farmers to set up shop at a quote unquote farmers market and sell their weed. So he didn't sign that because he said that he thought like the legislature would be or like the California department, they'd be flooded basically. But the one that they did pass was allowing those what do you call it, the lounges to sell food. They can sell food, and I think they can even set up like concerts and sell tickets to it if they did that. So that would be cool.
Oh, like club atmosphere. That'd be kind of cool. Go burn down and watch your
I would so much rather let the farmers sell their own weed than the weed vendors sell their own food.
Yeah, right. So part of that market report is rosin still king there in Colorado, and
or concentrates are anyhow. And Grambo, I did want to because I don't go to the dispos all that often. I'll go for the carts, which are probably still a big
carts and edibles. That's the only reason I go.
Yeah. But rosin, I mean, I got this Tropicana, which is absolutely beautiful. Because check my privilege, but
those do they will send to different states.
No, they don't.
So his brother Anile.
Oh, because it's THC.
Yeah.
These are CBD.
No, he outright said, I had him on my stream the other night.
Don't say that.
He said it. He wants business.
Yeah. Hey, so let's shout out. Let's talk about that. Did you see that Telegram basically said moving forward, we're going to be handing any and all information over to the old federales?
Such a bummer, man. It's so for people that don't know about Telegram, it's an encrypted service that essentially it's like Twitter with no rules. It's fully encrypted end to end. It was very safe. And then so they arrested.
Yeah, they will put you in jail.
They arrested the owner.
Tell them.
And just wasn't even really going to charge him. Just kind of like let him cook. And eventually they got to him and he acquiesced.
Yeah.
And he had to. He's got a wife and kid and all the things, but sucks for all of us.
Well, I don't know. Program,
well, the royal we.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild and crazy thing, that whole scene of Telegram, people just getting crazy with what they were offering.
I'll say it was the Wild West, and it probably should be shut down at some point, but it's sad to see.
Yeah, people should have at least a little filter, right?
But also the right to not,
Yeah, I guess you're right. What the hell do I care?
The filter changes,
You know what? I didn't show up there, man. So it didn't bother. Whatever was going on there was up to people that chose to show up at Telegram. All right.
R.I.P. Telegram. Back to the dark web.
Yes.
So I kind of want to move on and talk about that Dr. Bugbee episode that you guys had. I thought that was super interesting. It's always interesting to hear a perspective from someone who's very academic, I guess you would say, versus all of the, kind of stuff that we've bro scienced over the years. And it kind of, I was just curious, what was your take on that, on the interview?
Oh, he was a very smart guy. I'm glad that there's people like him that are legitimizing the science by actually doing the work. Um, and nothing to do with Bugbee, but I have this book I'm reading. I'm doing a book report on it for uh the next Dude Grow show. But it's called Science Fictions, and it's just about how things work at the university level and that whole what a peer reviewed research level. Oh,
Just needed a dab.
Oh, I got too high, Rambo. But seriously, and it's how things, they're motivated by, who they're funded by. Sometimes they're motivated by just what they think is gonna happen. It gives them a little bias. And like I said, this is just having to do with like all these things being studied, whether it's I think it's UV was my sticking point, is that I think Bugbee was saying that UV didn't matter too much. And I was like, I don't know, man. There's a bunch of people that it's been so popular that they've added it to the lights. The factories have decided to add it to the lights, man. So is thousands of people's anecdotal evidence, or even just a legit grower like you, JR, if you use UV and on one grow, then don't use it on another, or don't use it on three and use it on three of your last grows. Is that more powerful than doing a test inside of a growth chamber, which looks like a plant coffin?
And I would say, especially for people who have been doing it long enough with strains, like I've been growing Paloma for 4 or 5 years. When I put this plant under different lighting conditions or anything, I know the way it genetically expresses.
Right.
And
Right.
I know when it's on, and I'm winning second place at the Dude Grows Cup, and I know when it's not on. And so I think the one thing I also wanted to make a comment, maybe you can speak to this, is how many times in our cannabis industry have they taken a little bit of tweak of science and then just ran with it? Yeah, it's going to give you 8% or 12%, And so they sell millions of dollars of shit based on some, is it really going to,
It's made
I don't know.
resveratrol, man. Resveratrol and the giant knotweed plants. All right. Yes.
You mentioned that earlier. What is knotweed?
It is, I don't, it was this news article I read. It's this weird, like invasive weed, and they actually can take it
and it's like KNOT.
Yeah.
And they can make a fertilizer out of it.
Yeah, they can use an extract from. I think you can use the extract as like an IPM spray. I forget what it does, but it's I think something like that.
Yeah, it was. Remember they sponsored us for a little bit. They had Venerate and
Yeah, Venerate. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yep. I can't remember the name. I'm terrible.
Well, they're not a sponsor anymore.
Yeah, right. The sponsorship, I guess. Right? Something bioscience and No, that's not it.
I know what you're talking
Anyway.
about though. Yeah.
Doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter.
They're on the ag side of things.
Again.
Yeah. So JR had a question here. We were just talking about lights. A lot of people are geeking out about light spectrum. Do you buy much into that? How far down the rabbit hole do you get into the spectrum game?
Yeah, man. That is that's kind of in response to me and JR. We'll text back and forth. Maestro's in on it. Grandmother's a whole bunch of us in on it. And we started talking about, or JR started going down the rabbit hole of light spectrum a couple days ago. And I do remember interviewing Bugbee, where he was just like, yo, it's photons. It's the amount of light. It's not a freaking volume button. And I remember thinking, I do agree that's the most important thing. JR, do you really think that spectrum is that important? And I mean, meaning like the amount of red, whether it peaks down. I don't know if you have a spectrograph, but it peaks down low. Some of them have a big solid red. Some of them have a different far red, gap or ratio far to deep. I don't know.
Some of the studies that I've been looking at have shown a very blended spectrum in results of secondary metabolite and dry weight as compared to individual spectrums of deep, super far red, or just like a little bit a spike of blue and a bunch of far red. So they did these 3 different spectrum patterns, and they found that through that broader spectrum brought more to the table for the plant. My thing that I have issue with it is in horticulture in general, we understand that the phases of the sun and the spectrum of the light changes the way the plant morphology, roots, everything as it progresses into a flowering stage. So the sun in July that's above us, straight down and bluer, is not the same sun that's at an angle and giving us red in the fall that's responsible for the genetic expression and flowering. And so I think sometimes, and this is something we're finding out, is that there's not a tremendous amount of science behind, okay, well, if you use a lot of this spectrum and you only use some of this spectrum and you don't have this spectrum, what is it going to really do? And so,
though, isn't it cool we get to discover things?
This is actually something that I have a little bit of knowledge from just hanging out with Jaron over at their offices. His office is like a block from my house. So I'll go just over there and smoke weed and I'll listen. And one of the things,
he's like the kid that won't go away.
Oh man, it's hilarious over there. But they oftentimes they're getting, because they sell LED out of their company and they also sell like HPS and stuff. Yeah. And how many of the strains. So one of the things that really about the spectrum is that strains that were selected under HPS aren't performing as well under full spectrum as they are that limited spectrum of where their progeny was kind of like selected from. And so that really cued me into like, man, if plants are doing better with an inferior spectrum and a quote unquote inferior, because we measure it by CRI, color rendering index, how close it gets to the sun, the sun being 100, and LED is 90 plus. So I was always a CRI guy, like LED. So it kind of rocked my world. It's like if it was selected under a certain environment, it wants that environment all the way.
But that is true. And I think Jay Maestro brought up this point, is the long flowering sativas, to get them to finish out and do what they need to do. He was saying that they're just pretty much red and blue. You only want red and blue. You don't want nothing else in between to get them to do what they've got to do. So in my mind, in my experience, from most of the polyhybrids and the hybrid stuff that most of us are growing, a lot of that stuff has been bred and created indoors, has been kind of genotyped and passed on indoors. And so we were always taught that there was a flowering spectrum that you kind of wanted to be in, and there was a vegging spectrum. And I found when I ran my rooms with a veg spectrum and I ran my rooms with a nice flower spectrum, I was having the healthiest plants and the healthiest transition and the healthiest morphology. And I think that's the one thing with one of my beefs with tons of far red, is it changes the morphology of the plant. And if it's not in balance, then it can really cause problems in veg. And I also have issue with, marketing chasing efficiency, right? So if you have a ton of red and you got a lot of red in there, diodes, or even not the amount of diodes, but the amount of red you're pumping, they're a much more efficient diode than if you're running like a green or something like blue. You know what I mean? They're not as efficient. So if you're pumping tons of far red, it's going to give you these great efficiency ratings that might sell you a shit ton of lights. And I don't know if that's doing a service to the people who are trying to come out with the best medicine that they possibly can.
Well, I mean, if it's a 95 CRI, then that's the color of it, right? It's 95% of what the sun is. So
But if it wasn't selected under that and like bred and all the progeny and all the F's and F's, everything.
We're smoking every time you said progeny. Because
yeah, I wouldn't have ever guessed that. Like I always say,
I can see that. It's really the IRs, and I'm thinking
sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not the IR, the UV.
But also remember from Shane from Micro explained to us about how like the actual more like some of the red, because the red can penetrate deeper.
Yeah.
If it's only getting red and then it tells it like stretch, like you're under canopy. You need to get higher to get more of the spectrum and everything. So IR,
and there's also
as important.
With intensity, there's also photo inhibition. So if the plant is receiving more energy than it can photosynth or make processes with, it actually will start shutting the plant down and creating adverse effects in your rooting and stuff like that as well. So those balances, I think, of intensity and spectrum are very, very important.
So JR
and the drums of the bongos. You see that, man?
yeah. So
Mhm.
JR Drummer Man, I had a question for you. One, we always get this question when you talk about cherry paloma in your videos and stuff, which is how to get it. Should people just follow you on Instagram? What should they do?
Yeah, Instagram, also on realdgc.com. I post my menu on there every time there's a menu. And you can also find me on X, but I'm not really that active there.
Cool. And then second question, since you've gotten cherry paloma all over the place and obviously you've been growing it for a while, have you noticed that it looks different? And like I'm growing it outside this year. So this is like my second or third year growing it. And this year it's growing way better than I did last year for whatever reason. Just the plant just looks way better. Like the buds just look great. And I've noticed this time around, like purple's starting to come out, even though it's not been like we're literally in a heat wave right now. It's going to be 90 degrees,
Yeah, right.
but there's still purple coming out. So it's kind of curious what you've noticed across these different grows with people doing it outdoor, indoor, organic, whatever.
Yeah, I see almost every different grower almost has a different expression. And that's the thing that amazes me is I'll send stuff around. And that's the cool thing about interacting with IG and the social media community is a lot of these people post. And so I get to see the results or I'll repost saying, hey, look at what he just did. Cause like DGC Polly Two Fingers, he just won the Philly Hash and Bash with the peanut butter pie. And so I saw his shit and it looked fucking way better than mine. And so it's like, yeah, it's like all those little things about your environment, your lights, your feeding. And that was another point. It all very much, it matters on what that final product is. And that's, and nowadays it matters a lot. If you want to try to survive or you want to try to, build your brand, you need to be on top of your game at every aspect of the game.
Mic drop.
Building my brand. Grambo, you building your brand?
I am.
Every day.
All right. Nice guy Kenny is a brand.
He is a brand.
We got Kenny.
That's my brand ambassador right there. All right. Good.
Well, JR, any last questions for our special guests today?
Yeah, just kind of give us a shout out on the flagship products, Recharge, Grow Dots, and Real Buckets.
Yes, my name is Scotty Real, and Real Growers is my company. The premise is that it's really easy to grow your own medicine. It shouldn't be very expensive, and it shouldn't take a whole bunch of effort and research, man. You should be able to go and get yourself a tent, take my Real buckets, throw some cocoa core in there, mix the Grow Dots in there, and then top water it with Recharge maybe once a week or so. And it's really easy. And that makes me really happy. That's my motto, or I'm sorry, my goal rather, is to get people to encourage people that love cannabis, that use it as medicine, that just love cannabis, to start growing their own. And so I figured out a really easy way to do it, and I love telling everybody about it.
Nice. And Grambo, go ahead and give some shout outs on where people can watch you.
I always say follow me on Instagram. I always that helps me build my comedy stuff and everything over there. And yeah, I'm on YouTube. Scott was over on my stream. I had the Turpicana guys on, Kyle and
Good
everything.
stuff.
Yeah,
He's
so
good over there.
I love it. I got to get you guys on more often over there. So
Hey, just remember
big deal.
who was on show number 1. Don't ever forget.
That's right. Thank you, my friend.
And then, me and Rasta Jeff were there.
But I will throw out just because everyone knows Dude Grow Show, but not everyone knows about our new channel. DGC Grow Talk is purpose made. A lot of people take their main content and they chop it into shorts.
Yep.
We're not doing that. We build 8-minute Grow Talk, ground up, nothing but Grow Talk. And it's DGC Grow Talk every Monday and Friday would be the thing I would really push for all you cannabuzzers that haven't heard about the new channel. Check it out.
Yes.
And realdgc.com. We're all hanging out over there. Me, Scott.
Yeah.
Art.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yep.
Nice guy Kenny on OnlyFans.
Yes.
Pay extra for the feed
Big
pics.
brother.
And real DGP.
Nice.
Realfeetdgc.com or something like that.
Now I feel icky.
What about onedudeonesnake.com? Check that out too.
Shout out to the dude.
Shout out to Brett. We didn't forget about your buddy.
One dude. I hope you do have like a fake
Oh no,
like that.
go to onedudeonesnake.com.
We all advised against.
You'll laugh.
All right. Well, thanks guys for joining us today. We had a really great time. Once again, if you enjoyed this episode, look up. We have we had an episode with Grambo about a year ago or so where we talked about AI and all sorts of things. We got the background on Grambo. So
and have me back anytime. I'd love to come. Literally.
Yeah.
Anytime.
So if you need Grambo lore, if you're wondering like Grambo's origin story and things like that.
How I got these eyebrows.
Yeah, exactly. It's good. It's good. It's a good one. And then, like I said, we also have at least 1 or 2 episodes with Scotty, and those still get views today. It's really cool. I've shown the graphs to JR. It's funny with these videos that have been out, because they've been out for years now. It's funny. You can see like the growing season up and down, like our Lost Coast plant therapy. The video like starts going up as people go into the outdoor grow season.
Growers are outdoor folks. And so summer, no one's really watching right when fall comes.
Yeah.
It all goes back up.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks everyone in the chat. We had a few folks in the Cannabis community having a good time, chipping in some thoughts and tips and things like that. So thanks for joining us over there. If you want to be a part of that, search Cannabis in the App Store and use the code BUZZ for a free month. Shout out to our supporters. And as always, JR,
growers love.
Peace, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, take her easy, boys.
Come on. Oh, there he is.
Whoa,
Jasper.
That's a good looking baby right there. I was buying
and a little mustache. That's so good. Oh, he's looking at you. Jasper.
Grandma, do we just go with it or what? I mean, I guess we have to. Come on, it'll be funny.